G'day guys, I'm Pete Lewis, I'm from Melbourne, and yes, I was late. A bit of a word about due preparation for presentations. Here's what you do. You come from Melbourne, you take the train, you stop in Culcairn for 3 hours while they repair the train. Apparently an axle had stopped turning, and so as it was dragging along the railway tracks, it was throwing sparks behind the train. So at 1 in the morning they had to clear out a whole carriage of the train full of a bunch of drunk and sleep people. Then they didn't know how to disconnect the carriage, so they had to get instructions from town. So a bunch of the staff on the train were disconnecting the train. One of the people injured himself. And then they were going to put us on a bus, and they had the buses, but they didn't have the drivers. And so we were 3 hours late. And then I came here, and we've been having lots of fun setting up. But in the last 1 or 2 minutes, I think we actually got it going. So there you go. This is all about building a Joomla development platform on your own workstation. I have, as long as I've been involved in Joomla, which is 2 and a bit years, I've been dabbling in code and fiddling around with code and playing with it and developing it, and I built a little component and things like that. And so it's been really important to me to have a really good development environment. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Many of you probably possibly develop on your website. You might have your own development site that you work on. Many people actually work on the live site. If you ever get to the stage where you're working with actual code and you want to edit the code, it becomes a cumbersome task. How many of you people have tried editing files through cPanel and things like this? It's a bloody pain in the ass. And more so if you want to get deeper and deeper into it. I found that a great choice for me is to have my own development site on my own workstation. I wanted to find some terms. How many people, I want to get a bit of a perspective on where people are at. How many people have their own development system on their own workstations? I'm probably not going to be able to tell you all that much. It's a bit of an introductory. I want to give people the confidence that they can do it. So I apologise, it might be a bit old hat, and I'm sure many of you won't agree with some of the things that I'm talking about. First term I want to introduce is web platform. That is in the Apache environment. It's often called an app stack. Apache, MySQL, PHP. Together they give you your platform for Joomla. Thanks to Nick and his mates, we also have another option, which is the Microsoft web platform, which uses IIS, but essentially provides the same service. And you might be working on Linux and its various varieties. You might be working on Windows. You might be working on Mac or whatever. As you can see, I'm using a Mac here. And to that web platform, we add Joomla on top. There's this wonderful concept of open source software, and then Apache on top of an open source, MySQL, PHP, Joomla are all open source, the complete open source stack that you use for your Joomla environment. The next buzzword I want to talk about is IDE, integrated development environment. There are many different versions, all of them that have the same acronym. Basically what it means is it's a tool that allows you to look into the files, edit the files, run your site, and in conjunction with another little tool here, which is a debugger. Sorry, the examples of this are Eclipse, NetBeans, many others. I've tried Eclipse and NetBeans. Komodo is another one that's quite popular around the place. And then you can combine it with a debugger. So what that means is that if you have a particular problem with a bit of code, or you want to develop some code, you can set a breakpoint, and you can run your code to that breakpoint. You can see the values of the variables, test them, change them, fiddle around with them. Really, the only option that we have on one of the options that we have if you're actually an online website is to set a die statement with a variable, or a var dump, which dumps a whole structure of an object, and it's really pretty cumbersome. So there's the terms that I'll probably be using: web platform with Joomla on top of it, IDE, debugger. So just keep that picture in your mind when we're talking about it. And the total thing is really a Joomla development environment. I'd be interested in the people who are experienced in having their own development platform. I'd be interested in what you can contribute to this list. One of the great things is that you're not restricted to the tools that, for instance, cPanel provide to you. You can use your own text editor that you feel comfortable with, and there's a proliferation of different text editors that you can use when you've got your own environment on your own machine. Yeah, you can back up a site, but you can back it up locally, and you can back up bits of it. And you have more flexibility. You have the sort of flexibility that you have when you're, but because it's your own computer, you have the ability to put really good version control into your site as well. This is something that I've found very cumbersome if I'm working online. Oh, I've lost one already. And that is do people know the term SVN? Anyone not know the term SVN? It's a version control. What's the S stand for? Anyway, what typically happens, my favourite component is Fabric. Fabric issues a version of their component on maybe a 6-monthly basis, but then they will continually update that. And if you want to be on the real pointy edge of painful pointy edge of technology, you can get the latest version, which is called the latest SVN, download that and all. And then what I love about it is in the Joomla community, and probably in the open source community, you can talk with these people and say, look, we've really got a problem here, here's my fix. They'll put it in quite often, and then you'll be able to keep going. And I love that responsiveness of this community, where you don't have the benefit of that if you're working on 6-monthly releases. And it allows you to debug code. Well, that's a major point as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I want to know if, who got a good, nice, comfortable feeling when I flashed up a whole lot of command line code there? No one? Oh, did you? Really sorry, this isn't for you. Because I hate this. I just hate it. And the reason I hate it is because I learn these commands, I learn all the commands, and then a week later I've totally forgotten. And I can't find my way to recreating these wonderful things that I learned. I'm sorry, Dex, this is not for you. I apologise. Nick and I went to the Open Source Developers Conference December last year, full of the nerdiest nerds, gorgeous people, but they only talk in one line. Enter. Enter. And I don't work that way. I'm sorry, and I think a lot of people in the Joomla community feel that way as well. So that's not what it's about. So I've called it Build a Joomla Development Platform on your workstation, but sort of tongue-in-cheek and for Nick's benefit, I've called it How I Learned to Love Using a Mac. So I'm sorry about that. Over the whole 2 years that I've been working with Joomla, I have been a Microsoft devotee, and I have tried these web platforms, WAMP, XAMPP, IIS, the Microsoft Web Platform, Zen. I'm going to show you something. Just while we're waiting for this, hope it comes up. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is loading up a site locally on my PC development environment. It takes a little while, so we'll just get back to that. I've made up my own stack as well. I've used Zen, great product. We'll just check back here. It's still going. This is actually a video of loading up a vanilla Joomla site. Now, there'll be all sorts of explanations for why it's happening, but I frankly lost patience. Where are we? Shall we wait? No. And I use these IDEs, Eclipse, NetBeans, great products, all of them, but I never got away from this problem. That was 55 seconds. Now, it doesn't always happen, but loading a page, a vanilla Joomla page, often takes 15, 30 seconds. And I've had some of the greatest brain boxes in the Melbourne Joomla community come and sit at my side and help me, and I'm sorry, Nick, I just gave up. I gave up. The first reason I gave up is because I'm going overseas and I wanted one of these little rinky-dink things that I could put in my pack. But I actually discovered that it works really well, and those debuggers. So I'm going to call this Building a Joomla Development Platform on your Mac. So it's not exactly what I advertised, but using MAMP, Eclipse and Xdebug. Why do I use those? The reason is they were the ones I loaded first, and they worked. And when I say they worked, I have laboured hard and long for 2 years to get a decent development environment on Windows, and I've never been satisfied. I've had errors, I've had incompatibilities with debuggers, I've had screen update problems. First time I installed this, I installed it in about an hour and a half, and it worked. And, you know, I'd always talk to people who actually had a working development environment, and this is what it's all about. MAMP is, if you're acquainted with XAMPP, it's one of those web platforms that I talked about in the Windows environment. MAMP is a Mac wrapper around that. It's actually XAMPP. It is pretty slow. Yeah, PC. Thank you. I actually think we can probably agree to blame UTS for that, not but. Okay, so this is MAP. By the way, all these products are free. Every product that I'm talking about is free. Really big break.
Yeah, okay. Just a second. Okay.
I don't want you to do that.
Yeah, it's using the freak anyway, so don't worry about that. Cancel.
Okay. Okay, so I'm sure you're acquainted with this. What they're really trying to do is they give you MAP, but they really want you to use MAP Pro. Well, I have no idea why you would want to do that. This is just a sensational product. It works well. Just go for it. Download and install if you're acquainted with how you do that on the Mac. That was probably the first half hour that I had to work out how to install stuff on the Mac. It gives you a little pretty elephant thing here. Okay. You can stop, you probably, if you've worked in this environment before, you know you can stop or start servers. You have a preference page, very limited flexibility there, but you really don't need huge flexibility. This is a trick that took me quite some time to work out. By the way, don't bother noting this down. This talk is posted on the web. You'll be able to go back to it and have a look at it. And I've got links to images for all of these things that I'm showing you here. So if you just, for instance, click on here. Okay, I've got a screen dump of what I'm showing you. Okay, so that really what I'm trying to do is to show you that it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple to set up and almost foolproof. Okay, one of the things that's pretty important is the initial setup is with the ports like this. And then if you want to access your website, you've got to go //localhost : 8888/. Well, I don't have the patience for that. So I use the default ports like that, 803306, and it just runs. Okay. Open start page. I'm sure many of you will be accustomed to this type of thing. Gives you some basic information. It's worthwhile noting that the MySQL username and password are root, because you'll need that when you're loading Joomla. You have, as well as that, access to PHP info. Does everyone know PHP info? Anyone not? Okay, some information about the PHP setup and dear old PHP myadmin, if that's your thing. Okay, what you'll find then is straight away everything that you've got in application/map/ht docs is mapped to localhost. It's that simple. So for instance, I've got ht docs here. All right. Okay, as it's supplied, it's got an index.php file that's executed first. So when I go in here and go it goes straight to XAMPP. Remember that XAMPP's inside man, it's the guts of the thing. I don't really want to do that. Because one of the nice things about operating on your own environment is you really don't have to worry about security. So I tend to rename that index file. There it is. Z-index or whatever you might want to call it. It's already read it. I actually find that quite useful. I have a number of websites that are run alongside. I don't want to have to type in the name, so I prefer to actually have this directory listed. It works for me. So that's my advice. That while you're using this as a private development environment, what are we aiming at, Tim?
We'll probably go 10 minutes over.
So 12:40.
22.
While you're using it as a private development environment, we don't need to do that Joomla trick of having that dummy index.html or index.php in there. It's just not necessary. Okay, installing Joomla. I'm sure you've all installed Joomla. I happen to prefer to use subdirectories. If you're just developing one site, you might put the whole site into htdocs. It's your preference. This is a trick that took me quite a while to work. How many people are Mac users? There are a few. Apologies to the rest of you. This is a trick that took me quite some time to work out, and that is when you do the secondary click, it might be a two-finger click or a right click or whatever it is. You've got this get info. This will hold you up every time. See down here, read, write. In fact, I actually can't see the bottom of it.
Hold up the little triangles on the left.
There it is. Okay, this little lock here. If you unlock there, you will then be able to recursively apply to enclosed items. When you set read write, which is what you need to do to make a thing work, because by default it will be read only for admin, and you need to change that. You need to unlock it, recursively set it. So I've had it.
Never had to do it in my life.
Yeah. Maybe it's a different setup on my machine. I've never specifically set it up.
I've had to put yours into the HT box.
Anyway,
No,
some of you will hit this problem, and if you don't want to go into command line code in the Mac, this is how you do it, and you can recursively set all the files in there. It trapped me for quite some time. You can install Joomla, just use localhost root. It's not that clever a password, but you'll remember it. One of the things is that now we're going to get on to loading Eclipse. Now remember, Eclipse is an example of the IDE that we had over on the right-hand side of the screen. One of the things you need to know is whether your machines are 32-bit or a 64-bit. If you're using a Mac, most of the modern ones will be 64, I'm sure. This little bit of information here, and there's a link to it from the presentation, will tell you if you've got will lead you to the answer about if you've got a 32-bit or a 64-bit. When you get into Eclipse land, one of the real problems is you just have so much choice. They give you so many different versions and varieties, and if you meet someone, I'm sure when I talk to Andrew Eddy, I'll find out that he's using a totally different version of Eclipse, though he uses Eclipse as well. There are many different versions. Now, all I'm saying is that one worked for me. So it's, and they will bring out a new version, and this will be out of date in a couple of months' time, probably.
Except the Mac version, not Windows.
Correct. So this is, yeah, you'd be in trouble if you loaded the Windows version, but the Mac version's here. So happens I've got a 64-bit machine, so that's the one that I go for. If you go in through the Eclipse side, you will just be bewildered by the number of different options that you have available to you. And if I have one huge complaint about Eclipse, is it tries to be everything to everyone. Java and C and C++ and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's, you're bewildered by choice. Don't note this down. Just be aware of it. Does anyone not know how to find where their PHP ini file is? Everyone knows. Everyone knows to go to PHP info, and there it says that's where your PHP ini file is. Well, you need to do a bit of editing. You need to add these things. This information came from Mark Dexter, who's in the Joomla community in the US. He's got some great documents about exactly what we're doing here, more oriented towards the Windows environment, but really, really useful documentation. And I would not have been able to work this one out. If you change the PHP ini file, you stop and start the Apache, and then when you go over into your start page, PHP info, if you do a quick search for xdebug, this is just a wonderful thing. In the Windows environment, I cannot tell you how much time I spent working out compatibilities between Eclipse and debug and xdebug and WAMP or MAMP or whatever it was. This just worked. It just worked. And this was the big miracle. If you Google Windows xdebug Eclipse, you'll find a mountain of chat about, oh, well, you really should load this version with that and with that, and blah, 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 blah. Or maybe you could try that version, or that version was crap, go and get that version. It is just a joy to load something that works first time. Okay, I'm not going to talk much about Eclipse. Eclipse is dizzyingly complicated. I'll just give you a very brief, for those of you who are not aware of it. I am sure that other IDEs are great, as I said right at the start. I don't use them because Eclipse got in first and it worked. when you get into Eclipse, you'll see this style of thing. I'll just delete that so I can demonstrate the process just quickly. And this is the process that I document on the presentation. If you do your right click or your double click or whatever it may be, PHP project, that Joomla site, remember that it's applications htdocs that's mapped to the local host, open, call it Joomla, and finish. What that now does is now you've got all your site mapped in here. Now, if you want, you can use this as an editing tool. So you can open up index.php or whatever, and edit it, run it, whatever. That's to me not really all that valuable. I'm more conversant with other editors anyway. But I want to leave you with this image. Hopefully it works. It'd be disappointing if it didn't. You can go run debug. I right-clicked on index.php because that's the file that Joomla runs first. If you want to test the admin, it would be administrator / index.php.
So is this about to use Xdebug?
Yeah, with any luck.
Is Eclipse default configured when you have Xdebug?
Yeah, just it works. If there's a message that I want to convey, it's that it's just miraculous. It's wonderful that it just works. And if this works, then I'll be really pleased. Okay. Look, I am certainly not going to bore you with the details of this. As you can see, there's just so much stuff. Far too, in my opinion, far too much stuff that you've got available to you here. It's far too. It's overly complex. But what we've got here is we've got values of variables. So I can go in and have a look at the values of variables as we're going through the code. That's probably not good. And you can single step through. So this is go for it. This is step into, so it steps into all the subsidiary files. And this one is step over, which means it'll only stay at that level. And if this works, I'm going to be very, very happy, and I'm going to close the talk. So what I just did there was to set a breakpoint. And it stops at the breakpoint. So if you've got a problem with a component, you open up that file, set your breakpoint, let it rip, stops, and you've got all your variables there. That is really all the depth I want to go to. With whatever IDE you use, you'll find that it's very complex. There's capabilities that you're never going to use. But if you're into working with code, you're going to find this really useful. And the last thing is, once you let it go, this is actually set to display in the internal browser, I'm pretty sure.
Time now, we need to refresh.
Yeah. Yeah, give me a break. Anyway, don't matter. I'm not fussed. So you can set it to display in the internal browser, or you can display in your default browser, whatever that may be. I use Firefox. Okay, so they're the two steps that I just went through. If you're going to Andrew Eddy's talks tomorrow, he's going to be using these tools in a lot more depth than we're talking about here. These links here are documents that were developed by Mark Dexter, who I mentioned before. They go in great depth into the process that we're talking about here. Here's the first one. In fact, in retrospect, for a Mac user, probably too much depth. You probably don't need to know quite this much.
10 minutes.
And that's it. So, if you're a Mac user, I encourage you to give it a go. When I loaded that lot up on a new machine just last week, it took about 45 minutes, and that's with maps about a 10-minute download. It's quite slow. So it's really quite easy. If you're a Windows user, you might change. Thank you very much. We can have a discussion or we can go to lunch. Any points?
The security stuff, you might want to check your firewall rules to make sure that you're not wide open to the internet, port scanners, if you set your root password and HTTP just by the way.
I see you have some in the MacBook Air. Does it take a lot of juice out of it? Is it
To run that?
machine consuming or is it light?
Sorry?
Is it light to run? Does it take much?
Look, no, Eclipse is a big program. It's not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Yeah.
Have you actually met or seen someone who's installed WAMP successfully?
No, have you?
No.
I have.
You have?
Production,
Yeah. Did you find it slow?
It has to its boundaries.
Yeah.
But
Look, I think it's more interesting than this. I think it's more interesting than the Mac. It's got moods. Has its days, has its weeks.
the guys who maintain it, a couple of French guys, they haven't really sort of updated recently. So you go to source codes and you're wondering what version you should run on Windows 7 64-bit.
Look, I'm probably being unfair to WAMP because I used it right at the start and I actually forget what went wrong. I changed to XAMPP, used XAMPP for a long time, Zend for a long time, Mr. Hodges' Microsoft Web Platform for a little while, and I actually found virtually no difference in speed. I actually got, this is the main thing, I got frustrated at 15, 30-second page updates. I just wasn't that patient to do that. And then I ended up cobbling sites online simply because they ran at a decent speed. And I'm not a speed freak or anything. 5 seconds, that's fine. But 15, 30 seconds.
So can I just ask, is it logical to put in you using htdocs, but if you nominated another folder, for instance on a side drive, a little 500 gig drive you carry around with you, and then you, at home you plug it in the laptop at the office, the desktop, and you go to localhost and you still get the same thing. Now,
You know, I don't know whether you have the ability to do that in MAM.
I think I've done this once some months ago and it worked. And recently I tried it, and it was fine on the desktop. Took it home and put it on the laptop. No, didn't see it. Just didn't see the
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm the sort of person who, as soon as the finish light lights up, you know, you've got the previous, next, finish. When the finish light lights up, I hit it. And that's what I did.
What do you mean? Sorry.
Oh, I mean, do you want to skip the next 3 steps? Yeah, okay. That's what I did. So I don't know. I don't know if I was given the option to map another directory to localhost.
In Ramp, at least one can happily use all the benefits of virtual hosts in Apache, so you don't have to use the installed folder.
See, I needed you 2 years ago. I had a whole lot of experts from the south. Anyone else want to say anything? Well, thank you very much. Give it a go. Have fun with it. I actually, even when I'm just trying to work out the way things work, I find this fantastic. Just being able to look inside the code and work out what's going on, how this thing works. Okay. Lunchtime. Thank you very much.